Welcome to the Bend Don't Break podcast. We are powered by The Source Weekly, Bend's locally owned newspaper. This podcast is our eddy in the rushing waters of local journalism. We are glad that you're taking some of your time to listen to us chat with the people who shape our local community.
Thank you to our presenting sponsor, RE/MAX Key Properties, a family-owned full-service real estate brokerage specializing in residential, luxury, commercial, new construction, and ranch and land properties. Their new state-of-the-art facility at 42 Greenwood Avenue is a modern, collaborative space and the new home of the Bend Don't Break podcast recording studio.
I am Aaron Switzer, producer of this fine podcast and publisher of The Source. We are lovingly supported this week by Crux Brewery, your favorite place for local brews and mountain views. Normally, people who can see this would see me chugging the beer, but we forgot it on our way to the studio today. So, Crux, here you are. Today, we are welcoming Gregory Deffenbaugh, the new news director at KTVZ-TV in Bend, Oregon. Gregory brings extensive experience from his previous role as news director at WREX-TV in Rockford, Illinois, where his leadership earned the station multiple awards, including Best Station and Best Digital Presence. His career spans senior news management roles at respected stations in Denver, Oklahoma City, and Des Moines. A Northern Arizona University graduate, Gregory is known for his commitment to community-focused storytelling and newsroom leadership. Gregory, thanks for sitting down with us today.
Thanks for having me. You know a lot about me.
Yeah.
And some very kind words, too.
I cut all the bad words out.
Yes,
I left all that.
There's people out there that probably
We'll
have
just
them.
leave that on social media. People can find that if they will.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Greg, you've been here around 4 months?
4 months. I got here in October, mid-October.
Yeah.
And gosh, time's flying by.
Well, we had a pretty fair winter for a while there, and then you got hit with some real Bend weather.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because I met you in November, December, and it was a completely different climate then.
Yeah,
There was no snow.
Yeah, at the time I was thinking this is going to be kind of a dry, sunny
the
winter.
day we met was the first major snowfall because we were both on 97 and we couldn't get to where we were going.
That's right. That's a good memory. Good memory.
Yeah, it's coming back.
Yeah. So, Greg, how did you find out about this position, and what was the motivation for getting up and coming here?
So, there's a lot of factors that go on in the media world, as they like to say. First, my sisters live in Seattle, so I was trying to get closer to them. And then one of the upper managers at the parent company I'm with, which is News Press and Gazette, based out of Missouri. I've known him for quite some time. He is one of the corporate news directors and corporate, I'd say, feedback directors. They help us improve the newscasts and content. I've known him for a while. He worked for a previous company that contracted with several stations I was at. And I reached out to him saying, I'm looking for a new opportunity, looking to move back out west. And this opportunity came up, and I talked to Ron, our general manager, and several other team members, and it just was serendipitous, and everything fell into place, and here I am.
Yeah.
It's normal for people to move around in the news business.
Sure.
Usually they move up to bigger markets. I've been in the bigger markets, less drama in the smaller communities.
Sure.
And in a town like Bend and Redmond and Lapine and Central Oregon and all the other communities that we serve, it's growing a lot here. And I like being a part of telling those stories and really being involved in those smaller communities. Nothing wrong with the bigger cities, but I feel more of a connection.
Little bit wrong with a bigger city.
Yeah, little bit.
My country mouse is showing. I'm like very happy to be not in a big city
nothing
these days. Yeah, right.
But when I've worked in Pittsburgh, like you said, Oklahoma City, Denver, Phoenix was my first market, and that was right out of college. But I've done the big city thing, and with the smaller markets, you really get to help young journalists grow into their positions.
Yeah,
it's been rewarding.
Great. I always, of course, we've hired plenty of people from bigger markets who come here to write, and Nicole, our executive editor, came from Portland, and one of the first shocks that they have when they come from reporting in the big market is they're meeting all the people they're writing about.
Yeah.
You know, that you don't get to have that ivory tower journalism that you get in the bigger market where, you know, they start writing and they start saying some pretty, you know, harsh things. I'm like, hey, just know when you go to coffee, that guy's coming up to your table.
Exactly.
And it does, you know, as much as you want to believe that you're going to remain independent from that, it is the calming influence of a small market.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, with the megaphone, I would say that my station has due to its legacy here.
Sure.
People email me, call me all the time, just giving feedback on stories. And I like that because that means they're connected to their community and they care.
Yeah.
Because once you stop getting that feedback, they're not engaged. And you want people to be engaged. Now, we both know there's people out there that are a little too engaged.
There's a comfort level on engagement for sure.
There is a comfort level. In a professionalism level. But, you know, I think it's important to hear all perspectives when it comes to community conversations.
Sure.
So as soon as those emails and phone calls stop, you know, you get a little concerned, but they have not stopped since I've gotten here. And, you know, we appreciate the feedback. I'm not saying all of it's warranted.
Yeah.
Because some of it isn't warranted, but some of it is. And, you know, I'm a newbie here. So I take everything that people say to heart and try to learn from it and try to help my staff grow from it and become better journalists and also community citizens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say that KTVZ's website, your forum moderated by Barney, I mean, that guy is an amazing, you know, moderator in terms of, but you've got the largest feedback loop going.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think there's any place in the media environment in Central Oregon that sees that level of involvement. Plus you've got a person like Barney who is weighing right back in there, making corrections and stuff. And that's a little bit old school.
Yeah. You don't really see that dedication a lot anymore. And Bernie's very dedicated. And, you know, the whole newsroom for that matter is kind of switching to that digital first mentality of we need to pay more attention to our digital platforms. And that's every TV station around the country. Just because of how we're evolving into a streaming, more content focused operation rather than just a television station. So when you look at, you know, the feedback we get on stories, especially on Facebook and even on our website, it shows the power of community, but it also shows the power of engagement because, for example, you brought up, you know, we can update articles to people's feedback. Oh, no, I heard this today or I saw this, you know, and just to make sure that, you know, we're making sure all voices are heard on those stories.
Yeah. One of the things that I just revere now, and it's become, you know, I think when I first started publishing, I didn't understand the importance of the editor position or the person who is screening information, checking it for veracity. And, you know, as social media has evolved and we see more of these platforms like Nextdoor where there's no check, you know, you watch these kind of threads, they're full of misinformation. There was one this past weekend where people are attributing our company to a multinational corporation. I mean, we're all laughing our heads off, but you know, nonetheless, it's out there that we're owned by some mega core, and
like Comcast.
Or News
Corp.
There's no check.
Yeah.
You just watch it go, and of course, you know, we've all learned like we're not feeding the trolls, we're not jumping in there. So I really feel like as there's this increase in disinformation and, you know, everybody's trying to learn to swim in these new waters with everything that's going on in that respect. You do start to appreciate places that have an actual human being at the wheel.
Yeah. It does concern me though when you talk about the disinformation because that is apparent every day on our Facebook page.
Yeah.
If you look at the comments that are being said on there about stories, specifically political stories or stories that have a lot of interest when it comes to public servants, especially here in Central Oregon. If you, when it comes to city council or even school boards, which we've talked about, there's just a lot of misinformation out there and it just fuels the flames.
Right.
And then I'm saying they're going, I don't want to feed the trolls, but I want to put the fire out, because I get concerned
Yes.
as
Yeah, I
a
hear what you're saying.
journalist that no, that's not the story. And I don't want to start something on one of our platforms
Right.
that is going to fuel misinformation and speculation out of the community. Now, I also see this on other social media platforms. There are team members of mine, much younger, probably early 20s, on TikTok, and they'll tell me all the stories that they get on TikTok of misinformation, and just there's no policing of it.
Right.
And that is such a major concern to me, especially how divisive our culture and communities are right now.
Yeah.
And, the days of Murrow and Cronkite and Brokaw, I feel, were the golden era. In those days, I feel like, are behind us, and we're trying to navigate all this while still trying to be true to who we are as journalists.
Right.
It's challenging. It really is.
Yeah. There's only, and again, you're fortunate that you have Barney, who's actually like three humans in one when it comes to responding to media. But, again, you've got to respond to it in some way. And luckily, Megan, who's in the room here with us, who schedules these, she doesn't get to actually be on camera, but she filters all that social media for me and lets me know when we've got roaring fires going on.
Yeah.
Obviously, you turn to the younger members of your staff.
Yeah, you have to. You have to. And it's tough when those stories have like 500 comments on there, and then there's more comments under a comment, so they're just starting threads, and it's just, can you read the story and be human and just not spread false lies?
Yeah.
It's not that hard.
Yeah, it's always disturbing to me when you can tell there's an agenda when the jumping off point for those threads is usually not relevant to the headline above it, or they just read the headline and decided they would take a big U-turn into bashing some.
Or if there's a disagreement, have a constructive conversation, but be respectful.
Right.
Our job, is to present the facts, and then you take what you want from it, learn from it, digest it, and how you want to implement it. But a lot of what we report on is trying to inform our community, inspire them, and really make Central Oregon a great place to live. We cover challenging stories. We're not out there to get anyone. We're out there to be a voice for the voiceless, which is what journalism is, protected under the First Amendment. So it is a challenging time, especially with social media. I'll tell you that.
Well, you stepped into your position just after political season, right? It was just as that was closed. Did you have any of
I was here for the election.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
I stepped in right 2 weeks before the election. And, I came from a state.
Great time to transition.
Great time. I came from a state that is very much like Oregon.
Yeah.
If you know anything about Illinois politics, there are stories that go back generations, and it's quite fascinating if you ever study political science. But
they're still doom posting Abraham Lincoln in that state, aren't they?
Exactly. Birthplace of Ronald Reagan was in the former media market I worked in. So, Rockford it's a very diverse community when it comes to all sides of the political spectrum. So when I came here, I was surprised to see that. But in Central Oregon, I learned a lot about the diverse voices in all the communities. Kind of each have their identity, but they're very similar. And what strikes me is, they always say our differences are also very close, and we're very united more than we think we are. And living all over the country in these many media markets I've been in, I can say that is so true. We are so similar. No matter what state I'm in, everybody has the same concerns. Everybody celebrates the same things when there's celebrations in the community, and when things are going well. But when things aren't going well, we all have the same challenges. So it was very interesting here, political season. We did not have as much political advertisements on our air. Our congressional seat wasn't as challenged as the one here was. But I was surprised to see that too for Oregon. But what conversations that started are still going on today. in the topics that were covered. So
Yeah.
it's quite interesting on how connected people are in Oregon to their state and national politics, which I think is good because they're engaged.
Yeah.
Because once you stop becoming engaged, you don't care.
Well, when the Bynum Chavez race became such a, one of those races that could tip the house and all that money started pouring in. I have not, I was one of the people on the debate at your station just prior to you arriving, I think for that one.
It might have been that week.
Yeah, right. Because I said goodbye to the old news
Said goodbye to
director.
Kathy and hello to Greg.
Right. And, but man, was that vicious that you could, watching how the high stakes had transformed that election. And we had, I had sat down with Bynum prior to in the Democratic primary, and very mellow, very even keeled, and still a tough race against Skinner, but the gloves were off.
Yeah.
And the money that poured in on that, the ads that were just nonstop on the station, and it was wild to see.
Yeah.
And there were protesters. I thought that was really funny.
Yeah,
there were protesters, in case any of our viewers don't know this, because the KTVC's on Obie Riley, a little off the beaten path. I could not understand why they were protesting. There was absolutely no traffic. I think they were hoping someone would turn a camera out there. I drove up for the debate. I was like, this is the oddest place for a protest I've ever seen.
Yeah, because we have the park across the street. So
Right.
It's very quiet.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a very quiet place.
We have a beautiful view, though.
Yeah. Oh, incredible. Great place for lunch. Go across the road, go into the park. Yeah.
Exactly. But you're right. I did watch that debate just to educate myself on the community when I got here. And it was very vitriol and divisive.
Yeah.
Which, brings us back to the whole point. When I look at the two candidates, there's not a lot of differences in what their messages were. It's just how they were delivered.
Right. And they had a couple of key things that they thought were going to swing voters. And so that, to me, that whole debate just kept coming back to like 1 or 2 points, and, it was knives out on whose assistant got shoved to the side, and what was the abortion issue. And I don't know. I didn't love it. I had a lot of people who thought it was great television and a great debate because they really went at it. It was great theater, but I felt like, what am I going to follow up on from
What did
that?
the voters take away from
What
it?
was the takeaway, and did you learn a lot about
and that's
the
what
candidates?
debates are for.
Yeah.
What are voters take away from it? And we've seen it at the federal level, the state level, and the local level. It's just turned into shouting matches recently, and social media does not help.
No, that's just fueling it for sure.
Right.
What are your hopes for what you want to do now that you're 4 months in? So you got the fire hose has got to be slowing down a little bit.
It is, and that's exactly the term that Ron uses when we talk. So we're going through a rebranding campaign right now.
Okay.
So for a long time, we've been known as News Channel 21. We're going back to our old call letters is KTVZ News.
Okay.
Because we're on so many different platforms now.
Yeah.
It's not just a TV station, it's a content sharing source. We want people to come to us for local news, weather, sports, but we're on so many different platforms. When it comes to streaming, we're on the web, we're on your phone, we're on social media, and we're on TV. Who would have thought? But, so we've been working on that, and we premiered our new look, graphics package, music on Super Bowl Sunday, and that went off great. Our team worked very hard on that. Our graphics artist worked very hard on that. She's amazing. And then we're really leaning into our two pillars that we focus on here in the community, which is our local alert weather brand. And we're starting to have our meteorologists tell stories of the impact of climate change, not just on the weather aspect, but how it affects everybody's lives daily. We're doing one of those stories a month.
Great.
So John and Shannon have really taken the lead on that. And John's actually out shooting a story today on that. It's called Shifting Seasons, is what the title of the series is called. And then we have our new Problem Solvers brand, which I've spoken to you about at length, about investigative reporting and how important that is for communities, no matter what your size is.
And that's new for you guys, leaning into that.
Yes, we've done a little bit of investigative work before I got here, but we're really leaning into being holding people accountable at all levels,
Yeah.
no matter in the private sector or public sector. But we do it fairly.
Sure.
We just don't put something on the air and say it's Bible. We make sure all of our T's are crossed and our I's are dotted. But the motto of that is to inform, investigate, and inspire. So we're informing people of the story, investigating and inspiring, and that can be put against anything we put on the air.
Right.
But that's really our brand moving forward. And then our overall arching is first local live. We want to be first in the community, not only storytelling, but there for our community in local news, local weather, local sports, local content, and then live. Being out in the community at events, at city council meetings, making sure people that don't have the accessibility to know what's going on every day, we're there for them.
Right. Do you, since touching down, as you've started to think about where you want to apply your news lens, what strikes you as being kind of unique or something that you're interested in covering in the community or getting more
Aaron,
into?
There's so many different. This is such a unique market to tell stories in. And I think one of the biggest things right now that I'm seeing is people are really concerned about our outdoor space and how it's managed and really how it's going to be managed and used in the future, whether that's through the wildfire maps that we're talking about now
sure.
in the headlines, or the future of Mount Bachelor, which is a huge community conversation. Water rights, water issues. This is a very outdoor centric community, no matter if you're from Madras all the way down to La Pine and then from the mountains all the way over to Burns. People really care about the outdoors here. And I've never been in a market like that before. Illinois, everyone stayed inside in the wintertime and didn't want to, and, didn't touch anything. And in the summertime, everyone goes outside, but we didn't have beautiful national and state parks near us.
Sure.
Illinois, don't get me wrong, Illinoisans, you have a beautiful state.
Right.
But in Oregon, in this part of the country, you're surrounded by a lot of beautiful natural wonders. And to learn how I'm learning how to manage all those different types of stories because there's so many different ones. Now, digging deep into it, it's what's the stories that impact everyone?
Yeah.
So what's the economic impact, the education impact, the, how can I make somebody in La Pine that's watching our newscast care about what's happening up in Madras or so on and so forth. So that's what we're really delving into right now and planning on and trying to figure out, what's the best path forward when dealing with these outdoor issues. And that's one reason, we're focusing on climate change, but that's just the tip of the iceberg for this part of the state.
Yeah.
We're growing rapidly. There's a lot of building going on. The housing market is also a big issue here. Everybody wants to expand and grow, but the land here is going to be very limited at some point with being surrounded by federal land and state land. So more stories there, and it's you just have it. We could talk about this for probably hours.
Well, you're a good sponge. You've gotten in and you got on it. I mean, I've been surprised at how, given we've been covering the outdoors 28 years now, and it's so dynamic now. The fire threat has changed the whole nature of how people view their boundary. It used to be we just were lovey, love the trees, get them as close and as thick to your house as possible. And that's not the case anymore. Now people look at it and their view of it has much changed. And having Bachelor be on the market, and having it be for sale and it puts a different lens on, hey, this isn't a permanent thing. Mount Bachelor isn't that given that we just all love and play on. It could change, and that could change too. And so,
and what's interesting about that is I worked in Denver, and I'm familiar with two of the companies that are interested in the purchase or that have been rumored. And I snowboard and have, not so much anymore as I get older, but I love winter sports. I'm a big fan of the X Games and the U.S. snowboard ski team. I've gone to events in Colorado and stayed at these resorts and done stories with them. And, bachelors, and what people need to remember, it's a very different animal in this game.
Yeah.
Because they can't necessarily build a beautiful downtown Vail or Breckenridge on this.
Right.
It's a different business model, as we like to think about, because you have to drive up and back every day. There's not a hotel resort up there. There's not all these little shops up there.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
Right.
And so when I think that's why you're seeing so much groundswell from the community of going, okay, we need to preserve this because we don't want to lose its charm.
Right.
And whatever that looks like, 5, 10, 15 years down the line, I hope it continues to thrive, because what I find unique about it is that it is not an Aspen, a Vail, or Steamboat, or
right.
It's one of these smaller, it feels mom and pop like, which I think is intimate, because you can go up there and really, feel like you're still part of the Central Oregon community. When you go to the bigger resorts in Colorado or Utah, it feels a little corporate like.
Yeah,
I should say
the mega cores there.
Yeah. Which,
yeah,
look,
I couldn't agree more.
It's
there is that vibe. It's just like, but it's a big mountain. It's got so much acreage, and for what it is.
And look, like I was saying, there's nothing wrong with those companies. And I somewhat urge the public to educate themselves on why Vail has gotten so big. A lot of it does do with climate change. A lot of it has to do with just the economics of the business now.
Right.
And you could say that for any business, though. The bigger you are, the easier it is to manage your industry. The smaller you are, the more challenges there are. So, there's a lot of conversations happening in that, but what I hope for the future of that, and I think this community really hopes, is that it stays true to Central Oregon and the community that has really invested in it.
Well, Gregory, we are at the end of our time here. So
well, that was quick.
I know. I, as we were talking, I started to think, well, we'll just bullet point all the major issues, and we can just go back.
We didn't get to talk about sports. We didn't get to talk about the airport in Redmond, which I love talking about, because how many small communities like this have an airport where you can travel all over the western side of the country, and who knows, maybe the East Coast at some point.
Yeah. It's been an incredible, it's incredible how it's grown and how much the access has grown, and where you can direct out of here now. It's pretty amazing. My family lives in Atlanta, and now my wife's been going back there for issues, and she just hits one leg and boom, over there now, where before we used to have to go two, three flights.
Yeah. So, it's great now.
Yeah. All right. Well, people know where to find you.
They know where to find me.
Yeah. KTVZ.com.
KTVZ.com. I'm there every single day. No, just Monday through Friday. I do take weekends off, but it's a great team, and they really do care about the community we serve. They are young. A lot of them are young journalists who have an appetite to really make a difference in the community, and I really think that's important, especially in today's society where we really need to be out into the community storytelling and making sure people know that they have an advocate for them.
Well, we should tell readers and listeners we've kind of made a commitment to partner more a little bit and work on some investigative pieces together using our reporting and videography and hopefully get some better and more frequent stories out there for folks.
They're working on one right now. I'm not going to say what it is. You know what it is.
Right. They are working. So. All right. Well, Gregory, thank you very much for being here today.
You're welcome.
This has been the Bend Don't Break podcast. If you liked what you heard, become a member and support us at the Lay It Out Foundation so we can keep doing cool stuff like this and talking to Gregory more. We'll bring him back and we'll do a deep dive on the Redmond Airport.
Next time.
Yeah. We'll get Ron in here.
And Barney.
Yeah, we'll get them all.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you for listening. You've been listening to the Bend Don't Break podcast, powered by The Source Weekly. To read, hear, and see more of what we do, go to bensource.com.